Whenever I watch an anime, I have a few questions on my mind. The exact same basic stuff we all think. What motivates this dude? Which robots do we get to see? And what anime does the dude in the anime like to watch? Jokes aside, I always find fake media within an initial piece of media interesting. Not because they tell an actually interesting story, but because the authors of the primary work usually put an afterthought in there. I'm not actually itching to watch a full season of gummy bears or sports shouting, because they're clearly not meant to deliver a fleshed out story. If they did, they run the risk of taking away from the main narrative. I love the glimpse into the past these fake works give us. Almost always, the writer jotted down something they saw in the morning and called it good. A slimmer portion of instances, the fakey thing has a smart joke behind it. And then there's that small 5% of examples with real significance to the narrative and development of the main series. Most of the time, they're watching Blue until their bitch wife turns on Orange, but we've got some interesting takes on the show within a show trope as well. Today, I feel like talking about a few of those series. And by that I mean shows with those shows in them. That's right, shithead, this is a stealth anime recommendation video. Now, setting a few ground rules before I see comments about it, this is not in any way, shape, or form an all-encompassing list of every single fake anime within an anime. I don't like just reading the TV tropes page and pretending that I actually watched Yes Pretty Cure 5. So instead, I chose to limit this to talking about ones that I find cool and somewhat varied from each other. And for transparency, many of these I watched a while ago. I thought about rewatching all of everything for this video, but that as well turned into too large of an undertaking for such a niche little subject. Now, for who did like a fakey May first? I don't really know. I bet some episode of Suzae-san has a scene open up with Katsuo watching a bullshit show on his tiny TV set. But I ain't watching through all the 60s and 70s anime taking place in a modern day setting for one little piece of trivia, especially because this trope rose more in prominence once we reached the generation where otaku made anime. When anime began as a consistent medium on TV, the creators didn't have a wide enough source to base for any parody. If they wrote about kids slacking off, they wrote from their own memories of childhood, resembling 1940s or 50s Japan when they didn't have TV. And that's assuming the work took place in the modern day. Most anime back then had an imaginative sci-fi, historical, or superhero type setting. Stories where an otaku becomes a super fan of an anime simply did not fit into the narratives of anime until the degenerate otaku who experienced that took the wheel. So it makes sense that we pop off with If you know much about anime, then you probably know about Gainax. Or if you have less than 20 years experience breathing air, then know that the guys who make Evangelion and the cyberpunk anime with the short gal y'all wanna f used to work here. Gainax grew from a couple of otaku losers that wanted to do anything financially viable with their hobby so they could do what they loved, resulting in small indie anime productions, selling garage kit figures, and even making some video games to keep their new company afloat. I bring that up because I want to talk about one of their earliest hit OVAs, Otaku no Video. Otaku no Video barely qualifies for this video, but even if it didn't, I'd still bring it up a little. For the most part, the otaku in the video obsess over real anime. Cobra, Yurusei Yatsura, Lupin III, Gundam, real works to see at a convention. Episode 1 of 2 follows a kid named Kubo learning about otaku culture through his old high school buddy Tanaka, leading Kubo down the same dark rabbit hole I can imagine most of my viewers have gone down. Kubo learns not just about people who love anime and games, though as it opens in 1981, not a whole lot of games yet, but other hobbies as well. Airsoft guns, figures, I think Westerners forget this due to the change of meaning, but otaku in Japanese means a derogatory term for someone with a, normally self-impairing, obsession. In Otaku no Video, we see sci-fi, cosplay, and airsoft otaku sharing spaces together despite lack of overlapping interest, because they don't fit into Japan's harsh, ultra-conformative society. So while an anime studio made this, and as such, it focuses on the anime and anime-adjacent subcultures, it still gives a little time to other otaku, including interviews with real people about their obsessions. I'm fairly certain they play up these interviews for entertainment, because it makes the subject seem very pathetic. They definitely tried to find the most pathetic otaku they could, and when placed onto the backdrop of pre-bubble pop Japan, they look ultra pathetic, especially noticeable with the Westerner, who English speakers can clearly tell says something different under the Japanese translation. Back to Kubo though, we get to see him slowly inch further to the side of otaku, starting by watching anime and sci-fi shows at the otaku crack house that accepts him for who he is, and slowly getting further and further until he stays up late in line for an anime film. They don't say which anime film, but the important part is when one of their friends shows off these character design sheets for the best mecha film ever. While Kubo has fun with his new friends, we also see scenes where he slowly drifts further from his girlfriend. It turns the first episode into somewhat of an educational work, telling audiences how many otaku do work hard to analyze and create alternative works due to the inspiration of their favorite piece of media, while warning about the isolation you may experience by partaking in otaku culture. Then it goes off the rails for episode 2. Episode ends with Kubo's girlfriend cheating on him, so he and Tanaka decide to become the kings of otaku, making a garage kit company that grows so fast they can make foreign factories. That's an average otaku phrase after the first Chun-Li doujin. The duo experience some ups and downs until they make their fake anime Misty May. Misty May stars a normal high school girl that turns into a big busty magic bunny girl with mascots on her side. We know nothing else about her. She clearly satirizes the lowest hanging fruits on anime merchandising, with cute mascots for young girls to buy and a busty sexy woman to entice older men. Misty May accomplishes one real job in the narrative, and that's making Kubo and Tanaka's company a fuck ton of money. So much so that they create their own otaku amusement park with a full Macross in the center. It gets ridiculous, but ends on a sweet moment. Time skipping forward, the duo return to the underwater ruins of Otaku Land to find all of their friends reunited with their youth restored, going a little back to a line they like repeating. In Gundam, Char has a famous, always differently translated line going, "It's difficult to acknowledge the mistakes of one's youth." And I think this is them saying they don't want to admit to any mistakes. They had fun partaking in actions Japanese society frowns upon, and they want to keep it going. Something they could only do thanks to their fake anime Misty May. Keeping with loser otakus, why don't we move over to the biggest example of that story I can think of. Genshiken follows a similar premise to Otaku no Video. It opens with a few new college students joining an otaku-related club to find purpose and community, specifically the Society for the Study of Modern Visual Culture, or Genshiken for short. Genshiken, the series, also aims to show otaku culture in anime form, though unlike Otaku no Video, it never jumps the Macross to ridiculousness. It has wacky stuff for sure, but wacky like breaking your arm at Comiket or playing a hentai game because you refuse to have cosplay sex unless it's in character. Genshiken initially follows Sasahara as he delves into otaku culture like Kubo did, but somewhere along the way, I think the author realized two of the other major characters were more interesting, so most plots revolve more around something one of those two do. One of them, Madarame, is the biggest otaku of them all, an absolute mega fan that knows everything about anime, manga, doujins, and ero games. He allows his pride as an otaku to get the best of him, especially when others, both in and outside of the otaku sphere, judge him. His arc sees him learn to balance his otaku behaviors with real life. Not very well, mind you, he ends the anime unemployed, and in the manga he barely gets laid, so choose how much of that you consider a win. And the other followed character is Saki, a normal girl who only hangs out with the Genshiken club because her hot, normal-looking boyfriend joined it. She has an opposite arc. Near the start, she hates otaku, wants to end the club, and get her boyfriend out of those interests. Slowly, she starts to consider the club her friends and kinda turns fixing them into a pet project. Only unlike at the start, when she wants her boyfriend to give up his interests, she tries to help everyone understand each other through their commonality. And their most common interest? Kujibiki Unbalance is the big example that made me think of this video. Kujibu is meant to look like a very generic seasonal anime, with the most normal student council boy surrounded by girls type of scenario. The boys fucking love this show. Every week they discuss Kujibu, sticking to the series so long that I have no clue how long it's supposed to have run in universe. Everyone makes it seem as though it has the staying power of Gundam. Kujibiki Unbalance becomes somewhat of a benchmark of progression in the series. As I said, Saki and the club don't get along at first, until right after watching an episode of Unbalance where the main character reunites with his long-lost childhood gal pal, they learn that Saki and her boyfriend also knew each other in childhood. Genshiken's boys then use that as a point of relation to Saki's conundrum. Her conundrum is her boyfriend's eroge, in case you wanted to know. Later on when they go to Kamiket, they work as a team to find as much Kujibu dojins as they can. While there, they see the manga club, who they often butt heads with, selling their own dojin, thus starting to sow the seeds for the club's goals a few episodes later, making a Kujibiki Unbalanced dojin from their club. Genshiken's attempts to make a dojin really test the group's friendship, as only one member knows how to draw, Sasahara doesn't help much with the script, and it becomes a shit show for them. Only friendship and love of Kujibu gets them through to the finish line of making their own dojin, turning it into a bit of a big finale for some of the cast, because around this point is when they start rotating a few characters out for new ones, before the harder reboot where most of the cast got their degrees. Similarly, pretty much all the girl characters do a Kujibu cosplay at one point. Ono, who actually enjoys cosplay, convinces Saki to dress up, which marks her big semi-acceptance of Genshiken, while Saki then helps trying to get a later character, Ogoe, to go through the same process to less positive results. As the characters swap around, I seem to recall Kujibu falling to the back. Sure, the guys would rather watch it than have sex, but they also need to get jobs. For Sasahara, he actually gets a job by talking about Kujibu and his dojin with the interviewer, giving the lesson that you should absolutely, no question about it, rant about your favorite anime whenever you go to interview a job. Anyways, the big reason we gotta talk about Kujibu involves the full, real anime they made as well. The studio that animated Genshiken's first season, Palm Studio, went defunct when Genshiken 2 came out. From what I can tell, they did not animate season 2, just kept a credit in production. However, before their closure, they also made a 3-episode OVA of Kujibiki Unbalance. The fake anime Kujibu had 26 episodes that the Genshiken boys watched in season 1 of Genshiken. Of those 26, they produced and released 3 full-sized episodes with the Genshiken DVDs. An actual episode 1, a recap episode as episode 24, and part 1 of the 2-part finale, episode 25. While released after Genshiken finished airing, Palm Studio produced most, if not all, of the 3 episodes to use as clips in Genshiken to their pleasure, which explains the choice of episodes. You always need episode 1 to have all the exposition, the recap episodes gives them an excuse to make random stuff that could have occurred in the middle without further explanation, and the second final episode was more or less used to parody the sudden serious finale episode trope. And using the second final episode also matched the feel of Genshiken's last episode because season 1 kinda ended on a cliffhanger until season 2 got confirmed. In the actual story, our main character, Chihiro, joins a new school where everyone joins a group of 4 by lottery. Each team needs to participate in contests with random rules against other teams, known as Kujibiki. Episode 1 blazes through this setup, likely to make exposition scenes ready to use in Genshiken. Then the recap episode implies that the show followed a Kujibiki a week formula with lots of varied situations, such as making a website, surviving an RPG dungeon, making aliens shit themselves, and mahjong. Learn the basics of that by watching my worst performing video ever. Many of these situations led to sweaty, skin-showing fan service. Fan service for what would have been some of the least character designs until AI art became a thing. More funny given how in Genshiken so much dojins exist for them. Episode 25 just suddenly takes things seriously, telling us Chihiro's parents died years ago, the childhood best friend who the Genshiken boys bought lots of dojins of is super sick, and the group wants to stop doing Kujibikis. You can't take this OVA seriously, but as a fun little extra to Genshiken, I quite like it. Later on, they also did a full 12-episode series for Kujibiki. If I ever have a real reason to talk about Genshiken in greater detail, I'll get into it, but honestly, I didn't do a full rewatch for this video. It has major changes to which characters are important and puts Chihiro in the student council rather than a random group. It overall feels way different from the original, and in my opinion, felt like a joke that dragged on too long. I recall finding it funny sometimes, just not anything amazing. Maybe I'd feel different if it kept the Rugrats sounding music from the OVA. Quickly gonna cheat this one a little. Unlike the others today, this requires the manga and anime to get the joke. Lots of you have probably seen this newer one, Pop Team Epic. PTE has a large list of iconic one-off characters like Hamburger Girl and the Level 5 Kid, though the most famous has to be the cast of Hoshido Girl Drop. For a little context, I know today PTE seems like a big, huge, funny anime mainstay, but when it came out, it did not really have that reaction. It was a hard sell. Only people that knew B-Cub from their Toho doujins or people drawn in from a random page posted on 4chan checked it out. After PTE's first volume, B-Cub and Takashobo, the manga's publisher, made a legitimate effort to make it seem as though B-Cub had no intention to continue. B-Cub had enough of 4-panel gag manga and planned to move on to something slightly more in line with manga conventions. So we open up chapter 1 to meet our new hero, Taida Daichi, a young man totally confused because on the day his parents leave for a business trip, a girl he has never met claims herself as his childhood friend that he promised to marry. Due to his lack of memory of her, she grows angrier with Daichi, escalating until a funny meta gag that they turned into a tradition. When PTE got an anime, instead of announcing it as PTE, they announced a Girl Drop anime instead, complete with character sheets, a website, and a trailer. Eventually, the not well-preserved website had the same Papako face rip gag, and I thought they planned to stop there. However, episode 1 began with a recreation of the Girl Drop comic gag, including a full-sized OP, letting us see Girl Drop, I don't care what her real name is, and her friends doing idol work. And they kept the gag going further. Obviously, there's no point in doing real previews of the next PTE episode. All that does is spoil the gags. So instead, they made previews of non-existent Girl Drop episodes to further the lore, teasing generic shonen romance scenarios and dropping more girls into his harem. Up until the end, when we learned that Girl Drop died years ago to save Daichi. An interesting parody of the sudden serious final episodes that slice of life anime tend to have. Girl Drop really only works as a side piece to PTE. An anime is so ridiculous that it can do anything and people will slurp it up. Seeing just how far they could take this one little gag intrigued a lot of audiences, resulting in an anthology comic with collaboration between Akio Watanabe, Yokoyari Mengo, and more. It's not very good, but like most of these fake anime, it's not meant to be. Speaking of not good, Stardust Witch Marudu is a weird fake anime that materialized out of nowhere. I just know that this Alex Street Fighter 6 main likes it for the cute colors. Marudu is a clear parody of normal magical girl anime, something we see a lot as we go today. More true to life in this instance, they parody the way some otaku look at these anime. She knows that the show's a little embarrassing to admit watching because it clearly aims at kids, yet she still uses it as a jumping off point with other otaku she meets, stares them dead in the eye trying to convince them to watch it immediately after seeing adult doujinshi of the children's anime. I feel like they kinda use the protagonist's obsession with Marudu as a benchmark for how degenerate she becomes. Early on she just watches the show, then she forces her friends to join her, even if they hate it, then she buys doujins and a dakimakura, and finally her brother that she has a healthy relationship with convinces her friend to cosplay and sing the main theme song of it. Besides that, Marudu has a fun design. Kinda reminds me of designs by Yoshihiko Umakoshi like Magical Do-Re-Mi. She has a whole lore with a best friend, mascot, and and main enemy lady that reminds me of Naga the Serpent, though I think the sexualization jokes kinda undercut everything else. They make a few too many to where it no longer feels like this could work as a children's show, so I guess it matches the series it comes from, keeping with random ass magical girls. Pururin. Pururin comes from Welcome to the NHK, an anime Instagram has told me everyone has already seen, or they just like photos of the main character because they can call him a literal me because of the few screenshots they saw. Sato theorizes that a secret organization has caused his neathood. He only lacks a job, friends, or any sense of self-worth because of an external factor outside of his control. Obviously, the show does not want us taking him seriously. Sato has gone insane in his isolation, not helped by his neighbor blasting this same anime song over and over. Sato channels his conspiracies into said stupid anime song, thinking that this secret NHK group uses anime to indoctrinate Japanese youth into the neat lifestyle. In a drunken rage, he breaks into his neighbor's apartment to learn his old high school classmate had played the song all this time. And from there, Sato's theory kinda gets proven right. Pururin does ruin his fucking life. He has the same otaku spiral we saw in Genshiken and Otaku no Video, only without the positive parts. Genshiken and Otaku no Video had an underlying message of friendship through otaku habits. Not the case with NHK. Pururin pulls Sato down. Even when he quits his otaku habits near the end to have much worse problems, Pururin still lingers around in many forms. At times it almost feels like the writers try to air their grievances with the moe shows of the time, especially ones with maid characters like Mahoru and especially Nadesico, though I'm sure they mean it in a more playful manner. Oh, and of course, the theme song. Even if you haven't seen NHK in 10 years, I know that you probably start humming along if I say, they crafted a real earworm here. Studio Gonzo put loads of effort into Pururin because actually she did not exist in the original book. Pururin only exists in the anime unless the later manga version carries it over. I never read that. Similar to Girl Drop, Pururin also got a substantially smaller website for her. Besides her mascot pal, she has no other characters, plus web pages couldn't do as much at the time, so the website literally couldn't have much. Looking at Merudu and Pururin next to each other, I find it amusing that a character design clearly aimed at children got used both times to drive home the degeneracy of the interested characters. Only despite having a darker tone overall, NHK never portrays Pururin in as near of lewd situations as Merudu received. Just made her creepy. So far, we've mainly looked at anime where the main character gets really into otaku culture. Madarame, Kubo, and Sato struggled to balance the degenerate lifestyle of otakudom, thus gaining and losing certain things in the process, which matches Japanese views of the hobby at the time. Otaku were ginormous outsiders, while today, they're still outsiders, but not as much. I feel as if anime about making anime, or manga in this first instance, could kinda show the more normal parts of people making anime. Like, okay, anyone who makes art probably has a few screws loose, but I think showing the process of creation by normal people helps to humanize them in an art form some see as degenerate. If you have never seen Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-Kun, you really should. Of all the anime I talk about today, I recommend this over any others, partially because only 12 episodes. In my opinion, no comedy rom-com anime has ever balanced satire of the rom-com genre while still using the conventional tropes as perfectly as Nozaki-Kun. I consider this the season 2 Never Curses most innocent victim, because the DVDs sold insanely well back in the day, while the manga kept a steady monthly pace ever since it started. It has more than enough material for another season, which it did lack when season 1 finished airing. And learning this now, a new Chinese TV drama based on it. Unquestionably, a series that has stood the test of time. Nozaki-Kun stars Chiyo Sakura, a small high school girl at Roman Academy, no relation, who has decided to finally confess to her tall, imposing crush, Nozaki-Kun. Due to her poor wording, Nozaki assumes her as a fan of the shoujo romance manga he makes, Let's Fall in Love. From here on, Chiyo becomes a close friend and assistant to Nozaki's manga. Not a confidant though. Nozaki openly tells people he draws his manga, but his whole class just assumes he has a long-running joke because he looks like a serious athlete type and his manga has pretty roses. Many scenarios occur as a way to help Nozaki with his manga. Nozaki has Chiyo reenact typical shoujo manga tropes like umbrella sharing and clothes buying for his research, while she indulges in the fun of kinda dating the boys she likes. Over time, the doing it for the manga aspect becomes looser, especially in the manga, which has released 17 volumes since 2011, partially because the cast becomes a lot more ensemble. Nozaki and Chiyo morph into exaggerated versions of themselves when other characters take the lead, including the school heartthrob secret otaku tsundere Mikoshiba, the male-appearing secret girly girl Kashima, her drama club senpai she admires Hori-senpai, Chiyo's headstrong sporty friend Seiyo, and Nozaki's innocent sporty kohai Wakumatsu that plays basketball with Seiyo. Every character either helps to inspire Nozaki for characters in his manga, or helps him work on it. Nozaki's heroine for Let's Fall in Love looks similar to Chiyo with a personality based on Mikoshiba, minus the otaku part. Average Japanese high school and middle school girls don't relate to a girl who collects this much eroge. For Waka and Seiyo, they have a sort of three-sided romance going on that Nozaki copies. Waka likes Lorelei, the school's famous singer that he's never seen the face of. Seiyo finds Waka fun, Seiyo strikes fear into Waka, and Seiyo is, not secretly at all, Lorelei. If this ever gets confusing, don't worry, the volumes put these relationship charts in eventually. Nozaki designs a boy similar to Seiyo and a girl based on Waka who became mainstays in his manga. He starts to detest the character based on Seiyo since she annoys him in the early parts of the series, and despite Waka helping Nozaki with his manga, he never tells him that he based a character on him. Waka dumbfoundedly hashtag relates to his manga analog with no idea. Speaking of, Chiyo, Hori, Mikoshiba, and Waka all help him with his manga with their own skill sets. So to make each member have worth, they say where Nozaki lacks, making it so by the current point of the manga, Nozaki can only draw like 2 things and has issue coming up with a scenario unless he goes to experience a real-world situation. Similar to the longest running rom-coms, it has a sliding time scale that they mess around with a lot. For example, Nozaki seems to have special event manga to draw frequently like summer festivals and such, though they happen out of order if we're to believe every character is still in their current year of high school. Nozaki and Chiyo have studied their second year of high school for 15 years. Most rom-com manga running this long get agonizing. In my opinion, if you make a straight romance manga and haven't reached the wrap-up stage by the later teens of volume count, you overstayed your welcome. Even ones I liked, I think held on for longer than needed. Nozaki sidesteps this issue through the parody of the genre. I don't even want Nozaki and Chiyo or Mamiko and Suzuki V-Storm to get together. It's funnier that they still have misunderstandings after misunderstanding. Compared to the earlier Fakime I talked about, Let's Fall in Love is not interesting because of the effort put into making it feel real. They don't do that. Let's Fall in Love has no actual artistic value as a manga itself. Everyone praising it in-universe and juxtaposing it to the main cast makes it interesting, especially because the similarities don't come from poetic rhyming. It's because Nozaki did that. He copied real life because he's a hack mangaka. Okay, upon glancing back at the list I made a year ago, I came to realize that most of the anime I listed about making anime don't actually have a real narrative anime in them. Animation Runner Kuromi, Golden Boy's final episode, and Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken all got on my list, but the contents of their anime inside the anime doesn't actually mean anything. They focus on the process of making anime. I recommend watching all 3 of those due to their high quality, especially Kuromi, that's very underrated, but they don't quite fit today's topic. So instead, point over to Shirobako, an anime fitting a similar bill over the course of a 2-course series featuring 2 Fakimes inside of it. Shirobako made a big splash when it came out. I remember everyone watching it at the time. Shirobako follows a girl named Aoi, a production assistant at an anime studio trying her best to make anime despite not having the typical creative skills like voice acting or drawing. In the first 12 episodes, she tries to motivate animators to deliver cuts of their new show, Exodus, a ridiculous original idol anime where the idols solve a murder mystery. Then at the midway point of the series, Aoi gets promoted to production manager for their second show, Third Wing, a serious girls flying jet planes anime based on a manga with Independence Day moments and fan service. Due to the differences between shows, shows, we get to see different aspects of production, such as directors making loose changes on the fly in Exodus, and working with an original author for Third Wing. If you like that and want a series more slow-paced, then watch Shirobako. I risk repeating myself what I said with other shows if I talk too much about Shirobako itself, so let's look over at one of the anime itself, because guess what? They made a full 24-minute OVA for both of the shows in the series, featuring funny commentary on anime of the era. Exodus literally starts with the cheapest looking 3D CG dance sequence. If you didn't pay attention to anime at that time, man, a lot of this shit showed up. Sometimes I'm shocked how much better CG looks in anime these days. Followed by a long heart-to-heart girl talk with pointless fan service. Really funny when you look at the turbo moe art style in these outfits. Midway in, it takes a hard left turn by changing into a murder mystery where the girls need to run away from the cops for 3 months and 2 weeks after someone framed the trio for their manager's death. Despite the clear parodic nature, I kinda wish this was a whole show. Closest anime I can rack with a similar vibe is Rolling Girls. You know how a lot of people like to pretend Neon Genesis Evangelion subverts mecha tropes? They call it a critique or deconstruction despite following all the tropes going on since the start because they're scared to say they enjoyed a show in a genre they perceive as for kids. Well, Nadesico is the actual mecha deconstruction of the era, going so far as to not only juxtapose the mecha anime to a fake old-school mecha anime, but to then make it a key plot point to the final arc. Nadesico stars Akito, a boy raised on a Martian colony that suddenly finds himself in a position only he can fill, piloting the Estavalis something. Akito needs to find out why his parents died, and this girl with a photo of the two as childhood friends is his only lead. To press her further, he enrolls as a cook in the Nadesico spaceship, where said childhood friend, Eureka, presses him for affection. While on the Nadesico, Akito becomes besties with Guy. Guy became a pilot due to his obsession with Gekkan 3. Guy reintroduces Akito to Gekkan 3 after he hadn't seen it since childhood, where they bond despite their differences. Gekkan 3 parodies almost entirely Getter Robo with 3 pilots that fuse together into one bigger robot. Watching it inspires Akito to rise up to authority, do what he believes for the good of the universe. Gekkan 3 romanticizes mecha combat for the heroes, giving Guy this dream of dying in combat like one of the heroes in Gekkan. And once Guy does die outside of combat, this is in episode 3 and played partially for laughs, don't bitch about me for spoilers, Akito goes into a deep depression. On his own, he rewatches Gekkan over and over, with the exception of the final episode, because then he'll have to accept the end of the show and maybe his friend Guy by watching it. Throughout the whole series, he has the struggle of do I fight or not? Leaning more towards yes, but unlike some other mecha, they play this up for laughs. Gekkan helping to motivate him out of his slump. It becomes very important in a cool way that I don't want to give away. You should watch Nadesico. I think I ended up binging the whole series in 3 days when I watched it. Compared to the other anime today, Gekkan has less of a composite factor going for it. Pururin reminds me of Jiji Karato, but she's a separate beast. Gekkan has characters just like Getter Robo, with only a tad of Mazinger influence when looking at the robot design. For that reason, I find it interesting that they went out of their way to make a lot of Gekkan content. Both a full episode of content and a recap episode of Nadesico from the perspective of the Gekkan cast. In the latter, the Gekkan cast sit down watching what they realize as the recap episodes of Nadesico, joking that it exists to fix scheduling conflicts for the animators. Like most recap episodes, you can fast forward through a majority. But don't skip these middle bits with the Gekkan cast, including the villains. It develops into a fight scene with a limited animation style harkening back to 70s anime, while the OVA does a reverse. Akito and some Nadesico members go to a movie theater to watch a Gekkan feature. Said feature starts with a recap of the main Gekkan series, which I believe is all clips from Nadesico, but maybe 1 or 2 shots here are original. I'm not side-by-siding the whole thing. Afterwards, it swaps into a very typical mecha story. A villain bigger than the previous big bad with a long connection to the technology of the Gekkan reappears to take over Earth, and then the main heroes and old villains team up to stop him. Their technology doesn't stand a chance. However, the aliens stand no match to the red, hot-blooded spirit of humanity, ending Gekki Ganger with the type of soul none of you schmucks can understand. Out of all the ones I talked about today, Nadesico actually does the best with integrating the Fakime into the series itself, but I really mean it. I don't want to give that away. Watch Nadesico. Remember the Fat Albert 2004 film? The one that, I guess thankfully now, starred Kenan Thompson instead of Bill Cosby going to the real world? Okay, picture this. 11 Fat Alberts. I recall recreators carrying a lot of hype when it came out. So like a proper college anime fan, I declared too many people liked it and I had to watch better obscure shows. It's also an anime original that lasted 2 cours, so of course half the reviewers consisted of "this started out with so much potential but shit the bed near the end" from seasonal bros. No, really, it's clockwork. Watch every time. I finally watched it about a year ago and absolutely loved it. Recreators has loads of creativity. It has not 1, not 2, but 10 different fake otaku sphere works with a lot of work put into making the series feel like more than just a parody. Recreators follows this kid Sota. He ends up with 2 fictional girls coming to live with him. Celicia from an anime/light novel he likes, and Meteora, the shopkeeper character from a popular video game. At the same time, another OP military girl, Altair, appears to wreck everything for reasons that it explains at the midway point. So Altair gathers her party of fake characters to help her, while Sota and the Japanese government work up their team to stop Altair's plans. From there, Recreators delves into ideas of abstract creation, what that means, and what you would do if you met your god, authors in this instance. But given the topic of the video, we're just gonna focus on some cool shit that I liked. As the most recent serious work on my list, all of the genres they parody should resonate with you viewers at least a little bit. My favorite 3 characters were Meteora, Mamika the magical girl, and Rui the mech pilot. Meteora, as a normal-looking librarian character, doesn't take part in combat the same as other characters. She sits back to do planning with the powerless human characters. While doing such, she has fun enjoying human activities like snacks and playing her game. She has the comedic kudere attitude, which doesn't feel too out of place as a double fake character. Triple fake in the recap episode where she looks like this for no reason. While Rui and Mamika, their scenes show off the weight of their powers in a real world. Magical girls have giant ass beams that in a real world can cause catastrophic damage. Damage Mamika, as a fighter of hopes and dreams, wants to stop using once she realizes the gravity of her actions. While Rui has a giant mech that looks cool. Mecha plus Hiroyuki Sawano music is a guaranteed win. It is a shame that none of the fake media from this anime got made into an OVA. Obviously, they're all meant to be slightly generic, but that didn't stop Gekki Ganger or Shirobako. Additionally, looking at all of these next to each other at the end, I like how much more natural everyone treats otaku habits as a whole in Recreators. At no time do I recall a big "whoa, you fucking losers like anime" type scene. Only main characters hiding a little because recluses gravitate towards the hobby. A huge jump from Otaku no Video, where touching otaku culture even a little made you an outcast. I'm not sure what exactly I aim to gain from this video. I think I came out stupider with a few. I initially wrote about more of these ones on screen, but most writers kinda pull from the same few parodies, and 100% unrequited love doesn't impact Takagi-san that much. Truly, I know other YouTuber type people watch my videos. If anyone else has an idea of this type, just fucking take the baton and keep going. There are so many of these, even outside of anime. Either way, I'd love to hear about some of y'all's favorite fake shows in the comments.